I'd like to call this meeting of the Coventry Town Council to order at 6 p.m. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Pasqua. Councilmember Capaldi.
Here.
Councilmember Shockley.
Here.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Here.
President Lima.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Nation under God. In the event of an emergency, those present this evening can exit out the doors in the back of council chambers labeled either 1 or 2 to the front lawn or back parking lot of Town Hall. We're going to move. Could I have a motion to take the agenda out of order? Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilman Capaldi. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative.
Move to public comment on docketed items only. At this time, we'll accept public comment on docketed items. Those items on our agenda, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. Those members of the public on Zoom, public comment, just, oh, hi. Just make sure the microphone is switched on and state your name and address for the record, please. You guys just flip the switch to the on position. There you go.
My name is Linda Brennan. I'm from the Coventry. I live at 12 Teakwood Drive, Coventry. And I'm on the Coventry Land Trust, and I know you're going to be discussing the ordinance tonight. In the ordinance as it stands, you say that our new land trust will be 5 members appointed by the town council and 7 members with the town planner and someone from Parks and Rec. But currently we're 7 members appointed by the town council and plus the person from the town rec from planning. So we would like to go back to that amount because to be perfectly honest, we have more work than we can do keeping trails cleaned and trying to maintain our properties with the 7 we have. So we'd like to make sure we can maintain that 7 amount of people. The other thing is that we have a member now who is an employee of the town council of the town, but she only works shelving books part-time at the library. So we wanted to see if we could adjust the language somewhat so that that person who's been a very long time member and a long time resident of the town can maintain her position. So that's my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any members of the public on Zoom? Were there any additional public comment here in council chambers? Yep, just one person on Zoom. Just mute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please. Hello? State your name and address for the record. We can't hear you. Going once. Going twice.
Can you hear me?
Hello? Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. My name is Lisa Narkowitz. Address is 21 Beach Street. I had sent a email to Joanne Amatrano, which was supposed to be distributed to town council members. I thought it would be discussed at this point in the agenda.
We haven't gotten to that item on the agenda. Your comment was received.
But so I want to make a public comment on a docketed item.
Yes, you can make a comment. Correct.
This is the time now, right?
Correct.
Okay. So my question was, the resolution 2024-98 states that to create a public benefit for town residents. This is for access to Johnson's Pond. Does this mean that only town residents will be allowed to use Johnson's Pond?
Okay, thank you for your question. We will talk about that when we get to the resolution.
Okay. I was hoping you would answer it now so that we could discuss it in the public comments right now.
Yep, it's not a cut and dry answer. That's something that's part of the discussion for that resolution, so that's why it will be discussed then.
Okay. But then it's going to be too late, right, when you vote on it for the public comment at the end of the meeting?
If you'd like to give your opinion on what you think it should be, now would be the time to share that.
Okay, well, again, without knowing what you people are thinking, I am hoping that you will treat Johnson's Pond the same way you treat Briar Point, which is that there's not only access to town residents, but anyone who makes their presence known at the beach.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any members of the public on Zoom who would like to speak on docketed items? Please raise your hand to be let in. Going once. Going twice. 3 times. Public comment on docketed items is closed. We'll now move to resolutions of the council. Just a heads up for the council, item H under resolutions is duplicative. So you can cross that one off. It's duplicative of, I believe,
B.
B. Yes. Thank you. So at this time, we have a couple resolutions that are all related to the same project at the annex. Resolutions A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I are all related to the community center project at the annex. So I would like to entertain a motion to consider those resolutions as a block.
Make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc, second by Councilman Capaldi. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Solicitor?
I'm sorry, Madam President, you had someone had mentioned that resolutions B and H were the same.
That's what I was told, yes.
They're two different numbers.
Yeah, we're gonna have to renumber all subsequent resolutions.
Okay, I just want to point that. Thank you.
Yep. And at this time, I'll take a motion to approve said resolutions.
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Discussion, Manager Parrillo.
All the resolutions for the annex went out to RFP. Kevin created the RFPs with RGB. This is for the entire annex project that I'm going to talk about later on. Basically, it's for all the services that we needed to this point that people responded back to. So I want to ask the council to approve all of these so we can start construction next month.
Thank you. Members of the council, I think we're gonna have to amend the resolution number to be 102 for resolution I, just so that way that it's, in order. Does the council accept that as friendly? Okay. Any discussion on the resolutions? Councilmember Shockley.
Just to clarify for the public, all the costs that are within these resolutions are being paid for as part of the grant that we received.
Yes, we got $4.3 million from the state coming.
And are there any parts of the project that no one has bid on?
Yes, there are 3 parts that have not been bid on, that those are going to go back out to bid as we need those services during the project.
Okay.
Vice President Blank.
She asked my question.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving to Resolution J, 2024-96, tax assessors abatements and additions for August 21st through November 4th, 2024. This is pages 146 to 150 in your packet. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank.
Second.
Second by Councilman Capaldi. Ms. Martini. Yeah.
Okay, we have taxes abated, 2024, real property tax roll, $11,211.55. And then the prorated tax roll, $666.42. That's a total of $11,877.97. And then added on the prorate tax roll is $36,927.10. And on the supplemental tax roll, $14,162.69.
Discussion for Ms. Martini. Councilmember Shockley.
I just have a question, which I'm sure has been answered in the past, but I probably just don't remember. When we get taxes for past tax rolls, do they just plug holes that were already part of the budget, or do we consider those funds as new funds that we weren't expecting to receive?
When you say past tax rolls,
So this is the 2024. Is that fiscal year 2024 or
No.
or the calendar year? Okay, sorry, that was my
that's
mistake.
current. That's current.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes,
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to seek a motion to take as a block resolutions K, L, and N.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Discussion on the block. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
And at this time, I'll seek approval. Yep.
Just as an aside, as someone who's used the Foster Field parking lot, I don't know if we plan on relining it as is, as it's currently lined, but that parking lot is very hard to maneuver. And I think it should be kept in mind. If we're going to take the time to reline it, we should do it in a way that cars can get in and out, because I think that's currently a problem there.
We can work with the contractor and see if we can conform it differently so it is easier to get in and out. Sure.
I'll take a motion to approve the block of resolutions.
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice
Second.
President Blank, second by Councilman Capaldi. Discussion. So for folks watching these, this is a restriping project, a paving project, and an evaluation of roadways by a third party. We had used the same company back in 2021 to give us a third party evaluation of the status of some of our roads. And we are doing that again these are all through ARPA funds, federal relief dollars. Any further discussion on the resolutions? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi.
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc.
Yes.
President Lima.
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative. Motion passes.
Moving to Resolution O, 2024-100, to award a permanent chain link fence installation at the former Coventry landfill site and current solar array at RA Diffusco and Sun Fence Company of Johnston, Rye, in the amount of $174,300. This is page 156 in your packet. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Council Capaldi. Discussion. Solicitor Angel.
So it'll save me from getting up under my report. So the council may recall that with the construction of the solar array on top of the former landfill, the plan was to replace the fence. And I'm sure that eyesore, but also structurally, it's not a good fence. Modifications, as you know, were made to the plan so that the landfill itself is encircled. But then there would be an area outside of that would be fenced as well, so that there could be access to the tower that's there and access for DPW and their portion of this. Initially, when this project was thought about as part of the solar array, the town was responsible for a 50% reimbursement for whatever the cost of the fence was to be shared with its partners in the PRP group, which we own the landfill with. We're 60, they're 40 for the public's edification. As this project has gone on, the folks who own the solar array, Amoresco, and they're constructing it, I've had a subsequent negotiation with them so that rather than the town getting a bill for 50% and then having to split that 60-40 with the PRP group, initially the PRP group was resistant because they don't benefit from the income from the solar array. That's only a town benefit, as you know. So that was one issue. So at this point, it's 174. It's a lot of money, but we have Amoresco who has agreed to modify their reimbursement to the town so that they will pay a cost not to exceed of $124,900, with the balance of that would be due and owing by the town. The PRP group has agreed with me that they will reimburse us 40% of that. So essentially, all of that gets done at a cost to the town of about $29,000. So that's where we are.
Vice President Blank.
Appreciate the negotiation there.
Any further discussion on the resolution? Councilmember Shockley.
I also appreciate the cost as a percentage of that it's going to come to the town. What funds are we using to pay that portion?
That'll be ARPA.
Any further discussion from members of the council? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving to item P, Resolution 2024-104, authorizing payment of Reagan Marine Construction invoice number 1, funding source from the ARPA account. This is pages 157 to 159 in your packet. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Discussion. Solicitor Angel.
So on this one, this is phase 1 of the emergency repair that was done to the Daminant spillway. You know that there's a phase 2 that's in the offing that should be completed before the winter time. And it'd probably be in the same ballpark, probably about 50 to 60,000 would be my guess. But that's what this is. I think the resolution lays it out. So if you have questions, I'll take them.
Discussion from members of the council. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Item Q, sewer tie-in application, Resolution 2024-106 for 639 Main Street in Coventry. This is on page 160 in your packet. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President Blank,
Second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Discussion. Manager Parrillo.
Can you hear me? All right. So the applicant is Michael Sakosha, 639 Main Street. He was going to present the project, but he's not here. The project is a commercial storage building that's currently being constructed, 4,000 square feet. It's being divided into 2 units. There is a privately owned force main that runs in Main Street that Riverview Nursing Home owns. This project ties the sewer line into that private infrastructure. Mr. Sakosha has obtained permission from Riverview. He has an agreement. It's in this packet. He also has obtained a state utility permit that is in this packet. Calculations have been done by an independent engineer to show that the sewer line in Main Street can handle the flow from this building. I have worked with the engineer on the project, and I've received West Warwick's comments, and we're in agreement that everything is okay to move forward.
Discussion from members of the council. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution R, the council will hear after we take executive session. So we'll move to Resolution M, 2024-98, transferring to the Coventry Redevelopment Agency the redevelopment rights to the pond, property, dam, and dam structures of Flat River Reservoir to create a public benefit for town residents in accordance with Town of Coventry Code of Ordinances, Part 2, Section 187-4. This is pages 153 to 154 in our packet. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Make a motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Discussion.
I didn't know if the solicitor would just kind of give a high level summary of the
Sure.
resolution.
So the resolution itself lays out the authority of the council to tap into the ordinance that it passed relative to adding a section to the town code for ponds, dams, dam structures, and recreational use, namely Johnson's Pond. And the town under that ordinance in Section 4 is entitled to redevelop that area. In addition, under Section 5, the town may transfer some or all of its rights relative to the pond. And in particular, this resolution speaks to transferring the redevelopment rights related to the pond. And as part of the litigation, I know that we had someone call in under public comment earlier to talk about public benefit. When a municipality, in this case, engages in a condemnation, they may do so. A key component of it is for public benefit, public use. And this council has declared in resolutions and in ordinance, and you'll see this on the second page of the resolution, that the intention of the council is to see that the pond is redeveloped for public use, which shall include public access, boat ramps, parking facilities, and the like for public recreation. And that really amounts to what the public benefit is. By transferring this to the redevelopment authority, it fits within their purpose as a town agency. And the town agency component is something that's spoken of in Ordinance 2024-3. You can only transfer some or all of the rights in that area to a town agency. That's what the ordinance calls for. So this is the next step, if you will, in perfecting the town's ability to condemn and to designate for public use. What would then happen is that the redevelopment authority would be charged with, as it says here, overseeing the commission and development of a redevelopment plan. We do not have that expertise in-house. I saw Doug floating around here somewhere. Did he leave? There he is. I'm not asking you to move. I've had discussions, obviously, our planning department does not have the expertise or the bandwidth. I'm certain that if Mr. McLean sat down and did nothing for a year, he could do a redevelopment plan. They're complex. There are certain elemental pieces that you must meet in order to do them. So this would be sent out to a company that specializes in redevelopment plans. Did I answer your question?
You did. Thank you.
But just to be clear, as part of our taking condemnation of the dam structures property, we are required to provide the public access and public benefit.
Public benefit is a critical component. The town must provide a public benefit. This council has seen fit to define that public benefit must include the elements that I spoke of before. And when the caller called in and asked about whether or not it would be restricted to the use of town residents only, that's really a decision for the council or the redevelopment authority, whoever ends up owning this area. But that's going to be a decision, for you all to make. That's more of a political decision than it is a legal decision. then it doesn't speak to public benefit. But you do have to provide access to the public. You may, however, restrict that access to the public of Coventry residents. So
And-
if you choose, I'm not suggesting that you do.
And the RDA is appointed by the town council.
That's
They
correct.
serve-
It's an
they
agency
serve-
of the town.
Councilmember Shockley.
Yeah, and I'm just saying for clarification, in ordinance, we're specifying the public benefit has to be for, at a minimum, residents of the town of Coventry. Outside of the ordinance, the decision could be made to open it up for a wider public.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Capaldi, did you have your hand up? Is the chair, Harry Larson, here? Could you just come up for a second? Hi, can you just state your name and address for the record?
Harold Lawson, 3 Peachtree Lane, Coventry, Rhode Island.
Great. One of the pieces of outreach I heard was about pond residents having a seat at the table, and especially around development discussions on this. I believe 2 members either live on or have property on Johnson's Pond of the RDA, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the chair of the RDA while I have him? Right, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
All right. Moving back up to meeting minutes from prior meetings. We have 4 sets: August 27th, 2024 open session, September 10th, 2024 open session, September 10th, 2024 executive session, September 24th, 2024 open session. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as a block?
Make a motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And I will take a motion to approve the minutes as the block of minutes.
Make a motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilman Capaldi. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving to public acknowledgements and commendations, we have 2 this evening. The first one this is the last council meeting of our District 5 council member, Kimberly Shockley. I don't think I've ever called you Kimberly. That's your government name. And Kim has been someone who's stepped up to serve the town even before she was on the council. You were chair of Charter Review Commission, and has served a 4-year term. So we had put together a proclamation that I'd love to read now, recognizing her service. Councilmember Kimberly Shockley. The Coventry Town Council recognizes the many contributions of Councilmember Kimberly Shockley within our community as the elected representative of District 5 from 2020 to 2024. And whereas Kimberly Shockley has dutifully represented her constituents in various roles, including as chair of the Charter Review Commission prior to her election to the council. As a council member, she served on the School Building Committee and most recently the School Reconfiguration Committee. And whereas Councilmember Shockley is always very engaged and passionate in her participation with the town council, fostering a culture of honest conversation amongst her fellow council members and staff. And whereas she is a strong advocate for equitable, high-quality education and exploring creative and collaborative approaches in finding the best path forward for our students, educators, and community, both fiscally and operationally. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Hillary Lima, Council President of the Town of Coventry, affirms that the Coventry Town Council recognize and congratulate Councilmember Shockley on her 4 years of dedicated service to the Town of Coventry. In testimony whereof, and on behalf of the Honorable Town Council, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the town to be affixed this 12th day of November, 2024. So I just thank you very much, Kim. I know that we've had a wild ride these 4 years. We haven't always seen eye to eye, but I personally, just speaking for myself, I have a tremendous amount of respect for you and stepping up to serve your community. As we've seen, that's not something that many people do. It's a lot easier to throw rocks from Facebook, And you're someone who put your money where your mouth was and stepped up. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Can I just say something quick? No, I just wanted to say that while it has been a topsy-turvy 4 years, I couldn't be happier that I joined the council. I think it's something that gives you much more respect for people of different viewpoints. Most people are coming from a place of good on the town level from what I've seen. And I've been really proud to be a member of this town council. I think we started more than we finished, but we didn't put anything down. And I think that's really important. Two of the things I really wanted to do is be able to take part in the state funding for schools and to be able to alter the way in which this town approves budgets. And I think we're moving forward on both of those items and really going to be able to plan for the future. So once again, really proud to be part of the different elements of this group as it's been over the past 4 years. And I wish everyone still here and coming in the best of luck in the future.
Would any other members of the council like to say a few words? You make up a great point. One of the things I say all the time about being in government like this is I don't think we teach our youth how to have discourse with one another. You don't learn that until way later in life. And that's one of those things that we don't learn until we get in situations like this. It's just how to disagree with one another. So point well taken. Solicitor Angel.
So I'd like to add, if I could, I came here 2 years ago. You were here. We got to know each other. We sat in my office for quite some time, and we talked and we listened to each other, and I appreciated that very much. And during that time, I learned, and certainly the proof is in the pudding since then, you're a great mom, because you had to leave that meeting to get to a basketball game for both of your boys that night. So you're a great mom. And the last thing I want to say is my observation. I have an opportunity to observe these folks here in a lot of different settings. Integrity matters. And there's a lot of integrity on this council. And certainly you are a woman of integrity.
Councilman Capaldi.
We don't know each other very well. I've been here like for a blip of your 4 years. But I want to thank you for having confidence in me and kind of showing me some of the ropes and for always standing up for what you believe in. Thank you.
All right. And for the next one, I'm going to turn it over to the woman of the hour. We have a recognition of the Shawn Feinstein Middle School boys soccer team who won a state championship recently. Councilmember Shockley.
Yes, and I wanted to say thank you for letting me read this tonight. The boys themselves are going to be at the school committee meeting on Thursday in order to accept the commendation there as well. But as a mom of one of the players on the team, I am happy to be able to read this in front of the council. In recognition of the Shawn Feinstein Middle School boys soccer team, whereas over the past 2 regular seasons, the ASFMS boys soccer team has gone undefeated in competition against middle schools throughout the state. And whereas they have dominated the competition over those past years with a record this year of 14-0, including 9 shutouts, while having scored a total of 62 goals and only allowing 7 goals against. And whereas Coach Freegon has used the strength and versatility of this team to ensure all of the players on the roster receive significant playing time throughout the regular season, which contributed to the team's success and achievement. And whereas this is the first soccer team in the history of Shawn Feinstein Middle School to win the state championship. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Hillary Lima, Council President of the Town of Coventry, confirms that the Coventry Town Council recognizes and congratulates the Shawn Feinstein Middle School boys soccer team on their tremendous season, culminating in a Rhode Island state championship. In testimony whereof, and on behalf of the Honorable Town Council, Hillary has hereunto set her hand and caused the seal of the town to be affixed this 12th day of November, 2024. Thank you for letting me read. And we'll hoot and holler on Thursday at school committee.
Thank you and congratulations. All right. At this time, I will take a motion to open public hearing.
Make the motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Capaldi. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
We have two matters for public hearing this evening. Public hearing of ordinance number 2024-5, amendment of the Town of Coventry Code of Ordinances, Part 2, General Legislation 2005, fair share development fees, and B, public hearing of ordinance number 2024-6, amendment of the Town of Coventry Code of Ordinances, Part 1, General Legislation 2005. This is for trusts. To keep things organized, we will take public comment on the fair share development fees ordinance first. Are there any members of the public who'd like to make a comment in chambers? Any members of the public on Zoom? Public hearing on item A for ordinance 2024-5. Raise your hand. Okay. Public hearing of ordinance number 2024-6, amendment of the Town of Coventry Code of Ordinances, General Legislation 2005, it's dealing with the land trust. We heard public comment on this earlier. Anyone would like to come up and speak to this during public hearing? Good evening. Just make sure the microphone's on and state your name and address for the record, please. Just click it on. Just push it up. There you go.
Now it's on.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So yes, Chair of the Coventry Land Trust, 22 Circle Drive, Jenna Odell. So we want to talk about the ordinance for us, but I have some current concerns that we want to share. But before I get to those, I really want to acknowledge, and we all want to acknowledge as a land trust, that this ordinance is happening. We're really excited to see it in place. It formally establishes our role. It lets us have more thoughtful, more efficient approaches to achieving our mission. So we really appreciate the time that's gone into preparing this and the rapid speed at which it's gone through. So we have reviewed the language of the ordinance. We reviewed it last Wednesday. So if there were any changes in the interim between what we reviewed last Wednesday and tonight, I apologize for that discrepancy. Our first concern, as you kind of heard a little bit earlier from Linda Brennan, one of our members, is we would like to look at section 16.3, part A. We want to retain all 7 of our members, not drop it down to 5. We have all sorts of unique expertise. So 3 of us have master's degrees, 2 of us in environmental science, 1 in education. One of our members works with folks of different abilities. One of our members brings all sorts of issues pertaining to agriculture and mechanical operations. And 2 of our members have long history in this town that is quite invaluable to us. So we do a lot of work. None of us are paid. We're all volunteer. We manage about 700 acres throughout this town, in addition to some conservation easements, including some that we're actively considering now. And we really want to continue that work. So the more people we have to do the work, the better. We really request that we're being left at 7. However, if the Parks and Rec Director is added as an ex officio member, we do want to acknowledge that would be really helpful. I know there was much more historical involvement with Parks and Rec than there is currently. They have the staffing and the resources that we do not have in order to prepare things such as boardwalks. Like there's a boardwalk at Whipple that was vandalized a couple months ago, or ATV damage, or they'll go in and break beaver dams. We don't have that capability, so we would love to have a partnership with them that's stronger. And then going on to section 16.3 part B, we understand that a person employed in a managerial or financial position with the town might pose a conflict of interest in certain situations. And we do not want to create any circumstance that would create a conflict of interest. However, our concern is that one of our valued members who has been with the Land Trust for a long time is also employed by the town. She's employed part-time. There is no financial obligation or managerial responsibility that she has. So we just want to perhaps suggest that instead of any individual serving on the committee cannot be employed in any circumstance by the town. That it's changed to no member of said committee shall be an elected appointed official of the town, nor hold a managerial position in any department, office, or agency of the town. And then on section 16.5, part B, we want to request clarification on the preparation of the annual budget. So we have two components to our budget. As you may be aware, we have our general operating budget, which is about $4,000 a year. And then we have monies from the real estate transfer tax, which is about $2 million. That is not in general operating budget. So our current membership doesn't have anyone with the knowledge to track and prepare and analyze such a budget to the level we would like to see. So we would want to know if the current town finance director would take on this responsibility, if we would just be charged with tracking our operating budget or with the real estate transfer tax monies as well. If the finance director would not be taking it on, we would like to be able to at least work directly with them in order to ensure that any budget work we do is done in a proper and timely manner. And then on section 16.5, part C, we want to request clarification on the section if it includes the ability to obtain appraisals, i.e. will the funds needed by us to obtain appraisals of parcels we're considering, whether for outright purchase or conservation easement, development right sale, is that considered part of the land acquisition process? And is it thereby subject to advertising and approval by the town council? We ask that in order that we want to promote good faith negotiations with the landowners we work with. We do have to compete with the real estate market, unfortunately, and it can be a little bit challenging. So we really would like to streamline the process and have the ability to authorize appraisal funds ourselves, not the purchase of properties or development rights. That would, of course, be with your approval. And then I'm almost done. Two more sections. So section 16.6, part G, we're concerned we're given the right to sell property. People come to us, especially the past couple of years, with the expectation that their property is held in perpetuity. And we're worried that this would be a deterrent to folks who want to offer or sell land to us for that very reason. On the other hand, though, we can see there's a benefit of having this in the event something comes to light and we do need to dispose of the property, such as contaminated soil or other issues. So we would just like to point out, we believe it's important for us to develop specific criteria for determining when a property has become unsuitable. And we will be working on such criteria, assuming that that stays in the ordinance. And once approved, enter them into our bylaws. This will allow us to clarify the conditions under which we can sell, perhaps based on a unanimous vote after determining the property is unsuitable, because really our focus here is conservation and preservation of land. And lastly, section 16.6, lines 119 to 122. So this does go along with land sale. We propose to alternatively use language that says disposition or sale shall be made only by a vote of the trustees in which at least 2/3 of members vote in favor. So perhaps in replacement of unanimous, because this would allow us to be flexible in terms of how many voting members we have, assuming we are able to retain 7 voting members as we requested. Those are all my comments.
Thank you. First, I just want to say thank you for your service to the community and to your entire committee. I know that Ms. Brennan spoke earlier. I don't know if there's other members of the Land Trust here, but thank you for your volunteerism and for your service. So with respect to your questions, I just want to make sure I've inventoried them. I've kind of taken like keyword notes here, so I have them. So you mentioned the membership piece.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the ex officio Parks and Rec staff member. You mentioned leaving the door open for a town staff member to serve. You mentioned needing help with preparing a budget. the ability to conduct the appraisals on your own, the right to sell properties the land trust may have, and the ability to approve on a 2/3 vote versus unanimous.
Mhm.
Did I get all those?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my question would be then, based on that, for the solicitor, in terms of the drafting of this ordinance, did we base it on state statute? Like how much of this is governed by the state and how much is just something that we can control?
I'm going to take you back to a time when I had black hair and was a council president somewhere else. The state passed its land trust legislation in the late 90s. And as a young council president, I seized on that and drafted a land trust ordinance that has since been shaped by state law, case law, and some other changes. So the answer is partly yes and partly experience. So if I could go through Ms. Odell's suggested edits, section 16-3A, there's no real magic number to the number of people that can sit on the land trust. So you'd have 7 with 2 ex officio members that would be non-voting in the planner and the Parks and Recs director. Planners are planners should always have a seat at the table. And your Parks and Recs department usually has a seat at the table, or DPW, depending upon how big or small the town is, because for the very reasons that were raised here, there are resources that the town can bring to bear that the land trust just simply doesn't have on their own. So the first part of 16.3A is really a political decision. And the second part of that was just, my comment. And they're non-voting members. The Director of Planning and Parks and Rec Director is non-voting. 16-3B, I understand the way things may have been done here before, where you have town employees who serve, but there are ethics commission opinions on point where conflicts of interest have been determined in any number of different permutations. And, best practices says to draft it this way to just avoid that. I don't know, for example, if that person, I don't know who it is. I don't want to know who it is to single them out in public, whether or not they've been filing their ethics statements every year. As the community may or may not know, we've had a land trust in Coventry that's been nothing more than a line item in a budget since the land trust was created. After whenever it is that this ordinance is passed, we will have the present ability to transfer into the name of the land trust all the properties that have been purchased for them. Those properties presently are held in the name of the town of Coventry. They should be held in the name of the land trust. So we'll be taking measures to ensure that that happens. But those are my comments on 16.3A and 16.3B. Moving to 16-5B, I think it's a great point that the budget, I guess we just assume things when we write. I wrote it. I assumed that it would be done in consultation with the finance director, who would provide a budget, a draft budget to the land trust. So that makes perfect sense. Again, that's just another area where the town proper has the resources that the trust does not. 16-5C, the point that was raised by Ms. Odell was that the land trust would like to have authority to approve appraisals of their own accord. As this council knows, we've had that awkwardness where, appraisals, the request for an appraisal to expend funds comes before us. You can certainly give them the autonomy to order appraisals because the point's taken. You're competing for these properties. By the same token, this council, in my view, that since I've sat here, likes to know what money comes in and what money goes out. How you folks want to have an accounting of that when monies are expended is really up to you. but you might think about including some language in C to make that happen. So they get to call for the appraisal and spend the money, but yet they're accountable to you. We don't want to do appraisals on 20 properties and only buy one. You know, that's not what's happened, but the last item that I had, or the comment from the chairwoman, was section 16-6G. The 2/3 versus 4 out of 5 members is really a political decision. It's not a legal decision. The right to sell, however, so that the chairwoman is clear, when we accept a gift of land, usually almost 10 out of 10 times, there's a deed restriction with a right of reverter in those deeds. So that, and we'll be making sure and working with you to make sure that that happens, because that's the real guardrail for the town, not just being able to repurpose land after they've had it in their or the land trust has had it in their portfolio for a while. That's also a good reason not to have it in the name of the town. So it doesn't become a political decision. The land trust folks are gonna, you know, take measure to make sure that properties are not disposed of unless there's some odd circumstance, which offhand, I'm having trouble thinking of one. I mean, you could discover at some point, for example, that a piece of property in the land trust is a brownfield, and we somehow want to get it out of the portfolio. That would be a circumstance, but that very rarely happens. So, you know, again, we would do that by deed. We'd make sure that the deeds had a right of reverter and a restriction that it could only be used for open space purposes, which is in the meaning of the state statute. Those are my comments.
Anything else, Ms. Odell?
No, that is all. Again, we really appreciate the speed at which this is happening. We really look forward to becoming our own.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak during public hearing on this particular ordinance? Any members of the public on Zoom on the land trust ordinance? See one hand raised. Just unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please. Just unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record, please. Yep, you're unmuted. We can't hear you. Going once. Going twice. 3 times. Last chance. Can please speak so we can hear you? Okay. At this time, I'll seek a motion to come out of public hearing or close public hearing. I'm sorry.
Make a motion.
Motion by Vice President LeBlanc,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Capaldi. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
Vice President LeBlanc,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
4 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
All right, so we'll go to the first ordinance. Do I hear a motion to approve? Well, we didn't have any to the first one, the impact fees one. Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to bring up, during the last couple of planning commission meetings, it was brought to the commission by some contractors about waiving impact fees. I guess that was a practice years ago that was originated and approved by the planning commission. The planning commission no longer has that authority, and they are referring people to the town council. So in my reading of the current statute in the code, there's nothing in there. There's no mechanism for this council to even entertain something like a waiver of impact fees or fair development fees for the purpose of low mod construction going on in town to raise our number closer to that 10%. So I just wanted to make the council aware that it is a conversation that's happening at the planning commission, and the planning commission is kind of sending people to the council. And I don't know if the council wants to entertain a way to even entertain something like that or keep it status quo. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention that, because it has come up by at least 3 different developers.
Can you provide, or maybe the planning director can provide, how often is this done in other communities? Is it the town council that does it in other communities? My preference personally is that those kind of waivers where the council is allocating those funds or approving the allocation of those funds, it should come before the council and not the planning commission. So
They agree. The planning commission agrees. They're telling the developers that's not our issue to discuss. That's more of a council decision. But like I said, right now, there's no mechanism in the current code for the council to even take those, make those decisions or even hear that.
my other thing too is what kind of guardrails exist? Like, I'd be nervous that a waiver given without some set of rules or guardrails could be seen as political favor, or I would think that we'd want to have some guardrails of what qualifies for potential waiver.
So if I can, Madam President, federal law, which then cascades down to state law, which then cascades down to your municipality, provides that in the development of low to moderate and affordable housing statutes, that the local governmental entity can provide a subsidy. Okay. The federal government does not define what that is. Typically, well, not typically, municipalities don't dig into their own pocket and give a subsidy. They give a subsidy in the form of fee waivers and perhaps tax incentives. And that can be part of individual applications, which should not be heard before planning because it hits the town treasury. Anything that hits the town treasury should be coming before the town council. So I'd be happy to work with Director McLean if you'd like that to happen, because right now, to Manager Parrillo's point, there's no optionality within this ordinance for that issue to be even brought before the council for waiver. You don't have the legal right under your own code of ordinances to offer the type of subsidy that the federal law and the state law speaks of.
Is the amendment we're talking about something that is simple enough to be done this evening, or should it have some more thought put into it? And I mean,
Well, I can just give you some wording that I asked Doug to kind of give me something that he thinks we could possibly utilize, obviously going to the solicitor. So what he put together was, this is the following wording. Any consideration for a waiver for fair share development fees must be accompanied by a written letter to provide justification from the requesting party. The town council may grant and deny waiver requests partially or in whole at its own discretion. Emphasis will be placed on consideration of waivers for deed restricted affordable housing units, and specifically deed restricted affordable housing units that are being provided outside of the comprehensive permit application. So that's a lot of what's being asked now. Again, we really haven't dug into this with the solicitor to say what the wording should be, but I think it's just providing that avenue that gives the council the ability to do it, especially with all the growth that we have right now.
So if I may, Madam President, so that would be a substantive change to the ordinance, which would require re-advertising. So if I may respectfully request that we postpone consideration of this to the next meeting in order that I can find a place in here to integrate that language, and we should have it re-advertised and re-noticed, and then properly come back before the council for consideration.
okay, what's the pleasure of the council? Councilmember Shockley.
I agree that this is a substantive change that while we want to make this available for certain circumstances, like President Lima said, we want to make sure that we've kind of put guardrails around those circumstances so that they can't be made totally at the discretion of whatever council is currently seated. So I agree that we should postpone.
I agree too.
Okay. So we will, do we need a more formal motion to continue? So we'll just continue this to the first December meeting of the council. And then we'll move to the ordinance number 2024-6, amendment of the Town of Coventry Code of Ordinances, the Land Trust Ordinance. So what we essentially heard from the solicitor, membership's really up to the council, 5 to 7. We really should try to keep to ethics and stay away from conflict of interest. I don't think any of our other boards or commissions allow staff to serve as voting members. The budget language, I think that makes sense. The appraisal piece, that's up to the council. I think that makes sense. The right to sell is already kind of dictated by reverter clause or the deed. And then the 2/3 vote, that's again up to the council. So what's the pleasure of the council? Maybe we just tackle these step by step in terms of membership first. Councilmember Shockley.
So I think if it be based on the fact that it's the amount of work that requires doing, they want to have a 7-person council with the 2 ex officionado. I think that makes sense. I do wonder if having the Parks and Rec on there would take some of that workload off, take away some of that burden, but I can't be sure. I do feel that if our other boards and commissions don't have residents of the town, not residents, employees of the town, that we should remain consistent there. I think these are open meetings, and I hope that that person can be a part of this commission without actively being a member. I do feel that even appraisals should come before the council, just to make sure that the council is hearing the types of properties in the areas that are being looked at. And while currently we seem to have a very strong board in place, I think you always kind of have to skew towards the weakest board you may have in the future. And to make sure that those kind of funds being expended are going before the council. What was the final?
2/3 vote to approve purchase.
I
and for the
truly-
unanimous.
Yeah, I don't think you should need a unanimous. That being said, I have no skin in that particular game. So the board presenting that as their desire based on the fact that they have been doing this, I would definitely take that into account.
Councilman Capaldi.
I agree that the 7-person, what you're requesting is totally okay. I want to understand if you're saying that you don't agree that the part-time person that works should remain or to follow suit with the other.
Correct. I
boards.
don't think that a person who works for the town should be on one board when they can't be on others.
How long has this person been on the, working with you guys?
Just to be clear, it's not specific to this person that I feel
No,
this way. It's
but
just in general.
No, I understand that. I was just wondering.
We also shouldn't build. Okay. Thanks.
If that's the rule of the council or the town and all the other boards that we have,
Yeah.
then I think we have to follow suit.
Well, and I don't think we should, this is separate from the individual.
Right.
I don't think we want to build town policy and statute around a point in time.
Exactly.
So, the floor is still yours.
Can you go through the other points?
Membership, staff member, the budget language, appraisals coming to the council. And the 2/3 vote versus unanimous.
Yeah, I follow suit with what you guys have already said and agree with you guys.
Okay. Are these considered substantive changes? Would this need to be re-advertised, Solicitor Angel? What, do you have some? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Yep.
Thanks. And this is not public comment, but just as clarification, since there's discussion, I think it would be helpful. I'm gonna advocate on behalf of the clerks for a moment. There is in section 16-6, section D, it does indicate that the town clerk will be the entity that perform the duties to carry out the function. Essentially, that would be providing the minutes, the agendas. Historically, that function has been provided by the planning department, and I'm happy for planning. What's that? I've had discussions with Joanne, and I think she would say thank you for this. So I think we're happy to keep it. And if that section can be adjusted to indicate that the planning department can provide the facilitation of that. And then another request I have, which I think allows the flexibility for the 2 ex officio members. It does indicate at the end of section 16-3A that the ex officio members shall be the town planner and the director of Parks and Recreation. I may ask for the line to be added or designee, so that if either one of those two cannot attend a meeting, that department can still be represented. And I believe that's all I have.
I think by volunteering to take on more work for yourself in your office, we can do nothing but agree.
Joanne thinks. Yep.
Thanks, Doug.
Well, I guess we're waiting for the council president, but my
She gave me the gavel.
excellent.
Oh, nice.
So, Madam President, so my thought would be, given the number of changes, that we put this over to the next month, make in writing so that we have these changes and we're all clear. I mean, I don't want to do that to the clerk. I have to see her on Friday and she'll kick me.
So I think what you're saying is they're not substantive in content, but in number.
They are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no right to say yes to this, so.
Just not a majority.
Did you want to take a brief recess?
I believe no,
No?
I do not. We're ready to go.
How was it?
I did only have to
gave it
hit
up
the gavel
quickly.
once the audience got, the crowd got a little unruly, but what was discussed is that we will, because of the fact that the changes aren't substantive in nature, but in number, make the changes and then put this on the next agenda if that is the.
I totally agree. Okay, so we'll continue this to the first meeting in December.
Yep.
Okay, so back up. So we will now move to licenses. Item A, new victualling license, Di Petrillo's Pizza and Bakery, change of ownership. The clerk has indicated all requirements have been met. This is page 50 to 51 in our packet. Do I hear a motion to approve the license?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley,
Second.
second by Councilmember Capaldi. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And then those licenses that were continued from our October 22nd meeting, these were ones that were missing multiple items of substance. The clerk, Ms. Amatrano, left me a memo with respect to these licenses. And I'm happy to say that most of these are just waiting on a fire inspection. So we can do some contingent approvals this evening. So first, we've got the annual renewal of Class A liquor licenses. The list we have there, they're all just waiting on fire. So I'll take a motion to approve the licenses for Class A as a block.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley.
Second.
Second by Councilwoman Capaldi. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And now approval of the block of licenses contingent upon receipt of fire inspection by the clerk's office.
Are we making a motion? Make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley, second by Councilman Capaldi. Clerk?
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
For Class B liquor licenses, we have 2 that can get full approval this evening, Cozy Grill Family Restaurant and Sherry's Come Along In. Do I hear a motion to approve the Class B liquor license for those 2
Motion.
businesses?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Shockley, second by Councilman Capaldi. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And we have Bean Barn, Blackstone Urban Coffee Bar Incorporated, Filippo's Twisted Pizzeria Coventry, Harris Bar and Grill, Nikki's Lounge, Old Theater Diner, and Seven Moons up for approval contingent upon fire inspection. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion second. Clerk?
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Class B limited liquor licenses. We have one that, what's Class B limited liquor? Yep. We have one, it's noted that they actually did receive, the clerk's office received the fire inspection on November 8th for A. Paglierini's Family Restaurant. Do I hear a motion to approve the license?
Motion.
Second.
Motion second. Clerk?
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Class C liquor license, we have one, Mr. J's Havana Shop and Lounge. This is waiting on a fire inspection. Do I hear a motion to approve the license contingent upon fire inspection?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Class D, we have no other licenses up. Victualling licenses, we have one where we've received fire as of November 8th, Coventry Shell. Do I hear a motion to approve the license?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Clerk?
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And I'm seeking a motion to approve the following block as a block: BJ's Wholesale Club, Borelli's Pastry Shop, China Star, Coventry Nutrition, D'Angelo's, Dave's Marketplace, Dell's Lemonade of Coventry, Subway Store number 42061, Subway, Hampton and Coventry, Holiday Inn Express Providence, Murphy's Mobile, Racino's LLC California Taco, Rick and D's Incorporated, Stop and Shop number 720, Sweet Spot Nutrition, Utter Delights Incorporated, Ice Cream and Frozen Desserts. This is a motion to approve as a block.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Clerk?
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And do I hear a motion to approve the block of victualling licenses contingent upon a fire inspection?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion? Clerk?
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Moving to victualling licenses with additional hours, we have 3, Cumberland Farms, number 1290, Silver Lake Pizza, and Speedway LLC. Do I hear a motion to approve the block as a block?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Clerk?
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And do I hear a motion to approve the block contingent upon fire inspection?
Motion.
Whoa.
Second.
Motion and second. She switched it up.
You just got me all confused. I'm writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And lastly, additional hours only license, Ty Oak Food and Snack LLC seeking approval contingent upon fire inspection. Do I hear a
Motion.
Second.
motion and second? Any discussion? Clerk?
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you. Yep. Election and/or appointment of town officials. We have one this evening, Coventry Historic Preservation Commission, Colleen Hodges requesting to be moved up to a full member. I see Colleen here this evening, but we've talked to you many times. I don't know if anyone has any discussion for Ms. Hodges.
I do not have any discussion unless there's something you would like to say. I think you would make a perfect member of this commission, and I have no problem with affirming this.
Do I hear a motion to appoint Colleen Hodges to a full opening on the Coventry Historic Preservation Commission?
I make motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And moving to report of the town manager, Mr. Parrillo's got 4 items this evening.
So regarding the audits, we did receive the FY23 draft as promised on the 31st of October. Bob and Chris are just finalizing their review of that. We are hoping for a final FY23 on December 9th. That's kind of the deadline we've given ourselves and CLA to get that done, and with the presentation to the council at the December council meeting. Because that took a little bit longer than expected, we're now looking at the FY24 audit for January 31st to the first week in February. Again, the ballpark goal to have the FY24 audit done, which would be about 4 to 6 weeks past the deadline that the state has imposed. So we're getting better, but hopefully those two are going to be done forthwith, and then we can go back for our bond rating and then go out to bond. In concert with those two, the Auditor General also sent us a letter on October 17th with 6 items he wanted to have addressed by both the school and the council. Sorry, the school and the town. So we came up with a letter that all of you have. It has to be sent over to the Auditor General and the Chair of Municipal Finance by this Friday. It needs to be approved by this council and the school committee on Thursday. Basically, it kind of lays out a plan as to how we're going to attain the goals that they are both looking for. The one thing we really didn't have an answer to was he wants a deficit reduction plan. But as discussed with the council, we don't feel confident in coming up with one until we have our FY24 audit, so we know what that actual number is. We think right now it's 4.9, but until that FY24 is complete, I don't think we can actually put a plan in place to take care of that. So that's the Auditor General's request for a timeline.
Mr. Parrillo, if I may.
Yes.
And I appreciate the other council members' feedback on this, but I think if we could put in your calendar and the finance director's calendar, I think going forward until we get caught up on audits, if we can have it in your calendar to remind you and Mr. Savetti, I think on the 15th and the 30th of each month, the council should get an email, regardless of if anything's changed on the status of the audits. I don't know if the rest of the council feels that's appropriate. Councilor Shockley.
No, I agree, especially as we have multiple new council members coming on, a way to keep them informed as far as the progression of this, as well as when we are able to make that action plan in order to pay that deficit, because as we go into budgets, or as the council goes into budgets, I think it's really important to know what amounts are necessary there.
Councilwoman Capaldi.
I agree too on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Council President, can I ask that the council vote on that letter, just so I can submit that to the Auditor General?
The one that you passed around?
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Councilwoman Capaldi.
What is the COVID format? I'm don't know what that means.
I guess it's a, I don't know if Chris can speak to that. Yeah, Chris. Chris is the school department's finance director. If you guys haven't met him, Chris and Bob and Don and I have been working very closely over the last year trying to get these things done. So Chris can probably answer that better than I can.
So the municipal transparency reporting is a little more detailed as far as the components, but my understanding is during COVID, they relaxed, the level of detail that was needed for that reporting. It basically simplified it. It's pretty much you've got your revenues and a
So
summary of expenses.
The COVID format is more simplified.
It's more simplified during that, during the time of COVID.
Okay.
They're transitioning, away from the COVID era type of reporting and back into more detailed.
Thank you.
Cool.
I had also asked what the timeline was on the crosswalk between the two Keystone platforms. Manager Parrillo said that it would be done in concert with the end of reporting, getting the FY24 audit in. I think that needs to be a very high priority. And if there's a cost associated, we need to know sooner rather than later to budget for it appropriately or to allocate funds. I don't know if it's something we can figure out before the end of this calendar year. So if any funds are needed, maybe we consider ARPA. But that was something that we did make a commitment to as a whole, as a group in our sit down last month. So is there any discussion on this letter before we take a vote to ratify? Do I hear a motion to ratify the letter to the Auditor General and Chief of Municipal Finance?
Make a motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take a roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Thank you. The update on the annex, right on schedule with the annex. So the Pandemic Recovery Office was here last week in person, meeting with us. They went for a tour of the annex project, the 38,000 square feet that we're redeveloping. A member of the governor's office also came along to review our final budget and kind of where we are right now. So our award is 4.304. So $4,304,000 is our award from the state to develop the annex / community center across the street. Our total project cost is $4,595,000. So they had asked us that if we needed more money in order to finish our project to the expectation that we wanted, we were allowed to go over, with the caveat that we would have to be able to supply those extra funds if those funds never came about. So they are telling us that they think there's 1 or 2 projects out there currently out of the 19 that may not come to fruition. If one of those 2 projects do not come to fruition, that money gets circulated back, like this money that we have currently did. So we started out at 2.8 million. After all of the other cities and towns dropped out, there's only 19 left out of 39. We got allocated the 4.3. They still think there's 1 or 2 more that may drop out, which will help cover that about $300,000 difference that we are between our budget and our project completion. So we identified $200,000 in ARPA and about $95,000 in impact fees to bridge that gap if necessary. At the end of the day, if we don't want to utilize that money and we need to utilize that someplace else, there are items in the project that we can take off, if you want to say at the very end, almost as contingency. Like, we love to see this, love to see a new auditorium with new seats. Do we really need it? No. If the money's there, we want to do it. So that's where we are with the budget. The state also gave us $90,000 in programming money for that part of the project. So the 4.3 is for construction. They gave us $90,000 for programming. We intend on utilizing that money to hire, if you want to say, a programming coordinator who is going to be over at the annex as the point person for all the different projects we have for education, health monitoring, and workforce development, almost like a point person outside of the current staffing that we have right now. So that's how we plan on using that money. Right now, we are on a fast track. Kevin thinks he can have this done by December of 25, which is a year ahead of schedule. So once that is completed, Kevin still can't retire, but still it's going to be the biggest project and the quickest project in the entire state. So I think it's really going to be a building that's going to become the center of Coventry. I think it's really going to be utilized in a way. Bob Robelot's got tremendous plans for the programming. It's really going to bring a lot of different people in the community together in one space for a lot of different projects and a lot of different programming. And if we can coordinate that with something else we're working on for the front of Town Hall, I think it's really going to be the new center of Coventry here in this space. So all of the RFPs that you guys approved tonight will help Kevin start, hopefully, construction mid-December. He's already started some demolition. The back parking lot where the buses were, we've already taken that fence down. We moved the propane tank. So we're already starting externally. And now that the roof's done, we spent about $280,000 on that. Now that the roof's done, we can actually start working on the interior of the building. So that is the annex update. Opera funds. So at the end of September, we provided the council a report that showed approximately $787,000 was unbudgeted at that time. In going over the numbers again, numbers that we repurposed about a month ago, along with the expenditures that we approved tonight, it looks like there's approximately about $600,000 unaccounted for in ARPA. That is not counting the $1.6 million that we're going to be carrying over into next year. So the large items that we're going to carry over to next year are $200,000 for the annex, $700,000 for Tioga Lake, $455,000 for redevelopment, $145,000 for Dam 176. Kevin has $18,000 in restriping. Doug has $18,000 for some planning initiatives. Land Trust has $1,900 in signs, and there's $37,000 for a truck and $15,000 for Joanne for the codification of ordinances. So we had a meeting with the state last week about how to utilize these funds now and how to carry them over. So this council and other councils across the state have used the resolution as the means to spend opera money, which is fine for money spent up to December 31st of 24. After that, a resolution will not obligate that money officially. The only obligation is either an MOU between myself and a director that the solicitor is going to have to come up with, or a signed contract. So that 1.6 million that I spoke of is going to have to be obligated under an MOU that we come up with for the several different projects that we have initiated. I asked if one project goes over and one goes under, how do we manage that? They said that those projects can be replaced and reclassified as long as they've been identified prior to the December 31st deadline. So we will have that money accessible and available to us. It all depends on what projects may need less or may need more. I think that's it for opera. We'll have a better handle on the exact number come December. So December's meeting, we'll have the final number as to what the availability is and where this council wants to put the, right now, it looks like about $600,000. Is it paving? Is it Johnson's Pond? Is it Dam 176? There's plenty of areas to put that money towards. So that'll be a discussion next month.
Any discussion from the council? All right. Moving to report of other town officers, Solicitor Angel. All set? Okay. Then we'll move to update from Mr. DeVerna.
Stephen, I consider that a gift in my final week.
Well, as
Executive session
as a practicing lawyer, they removed my feelings at the swearing in. But I have to say, I did speak during resolutions on these, but thank you for that.
Session payback, Tim. Good.
So good evening. Believe you have the first quarter school for fiscal year 2025 reports that we had brought before the school committee and then subsequently shared with the town. I'll just go through them. There's a summary which you may be familiar with from the past that basically has a on the left side is the current fiscal year, our budget, our actual revenues. Yes. It was emailed out after. I can give a summary if you don't have it, but I know I emailed it out. We can subsequently share it with you. But I know I shared it with the finance director for the town as well. But so we basically, what we do is we have summarized our revenues for the first quarter through the end of September in comparison with, what the budgeted figures are. Same with expenditures. And, we group those sort of by the UCOA categories, the broad categories being your salaries, your wages, the next category being employee benefits, the next broad category being purchase services. Then you have supplies and materials, and then furniture and equipment is a smaller subcategory. Fees and dues is also a smaller subcategory. And then you have just some other miscellaneous, which is a pretty small category as well. I guess without you having it in front of you, I'll just try to summarize what we have, because on the other side of this summary, we end up having the fiscal year, the prior fiscal year through the same period. So the first quarter of FY24, we put those next to each other for comparison. I would say as we go through the top section, which is revenue, the local appropriations is pretty standard. We're a quarter of the way through the year. We've received a quarter of the revenue from the local appropriations. State aid, we're actually showing that a little higher. It's at 20% compared to last year. That just has to do with sort of like the accounting for this. In the past, it's now with a greater focus on these kind of monthly reports or quarterly reports, as opposed to a year-end practice, where in the past, when the money would come over from the state, the state aid generally comes right in at the end of the month. They send it over via RIPay. There's not an exact date that that's going to come. It often can come the last day of the month, and that shows up in RIPay. It may take a day or two to clear until Mr. Savetti sees it in the bank account, and then it has it available and transfer to us. So at the end of the day, our September state aid may actually hit the bank account of the town at the beginning of October. Historically, it was just, we would record it then at the beginning of October. But, just to really make this comparative going forward year to year, we've decided to, because one given year, your September state aid could actually arrive in September and the next year it's in October. We've just decided to make sure that we recognize the revenue for the month that it's related to. So tuitions was notably up. Last year we had received about 177,000 in tuitions, which is about 18% of what was budgeted. We're up to 28% of what we budgeted, or about a little over 310,000. I largely attribute that to, we've had a number of new staff over in the administration and in the finance office. So one of our accounting clerks was new in the prior year, has a better handle on it this year, and is ahead of the game, getting all the billing out to other districts for students attending Coventry schools from other districts. So Medicaid is also something that we've seen an increase in. It was about 59,000 and change through the first quarter last year. It's up to over 139,000 for this year, and that we can attribute it to a real drive and emphasis on pushing the procedures and practices that need to happen, and also providing staff training to really ensure that people are logging the information that is needed to be able to get those Medicaid reimbursements. And as a result, we're starting to see, more come out of the Medicaid reimbursements, and we're hoping that trend continues. And then, as far as the expenditure side, so that's really on the revenue side, where overall revenue is about 23% realized based on the, compared to the budget, and last year was about 20%. So we're doing a little better on the revenue side. Salaries for the first quarter represent 21% of the budget. Last year, they were at 24%. And the same token, benefits are for the first quarter come in at 23% of the budget, where last year it was at 26% at this point in time. So I think that, there's been a number of measures with, being able to cut some positions and have a better, handle on the budgeting of the salary and benefits. So we are encouraged by that relative percentage compared to the prior year. And the other notable, we did notice that we're also down in supplies and materials. There's been a discretionary spending freeze. So where we were at about just shy of 500,000 last year through this period, we're sitting at about just over 300,000, 303,000 and change. So that is 14% of that budget spent this year through the first quarter versus 21% spent through the first quarter of last year. The one area that is probably notably up is furniture and equipment. We're at 265,000 through the first quarter versus under about 188,000 last quarter. I'm sorry, not last quarter, for the first quarter of last year, which means we're at about 45% of what we had budgeted versus 39% last year. When you get the details, we have the supporting details for all these categories, and just an analysis of that. The notable areas where we're up were in some technology software and some technology hardware expenditures, which aren't really linear. It's just a timing of when you get into that software annual contract and when you're making your big budgeted technology purchases. So we don't really anticipate. I think that's something that just was processed a little earlier in the year this year versus last year. The last category is just fees and dues. We're at about 49,000 versus 41,000. That's not a big percentage of the budget. When you get the
just one question, Councilmember Shockley.
I just want to understand, it seems like most of your revenues and expenses, if they're up or down from last year, it's really just a timing issue, like you mentioned, with revenues being up in certain instances because you have better staffing and you're being more on top of getting the funds in. Are there any where you expect higher revenues for the year based on it being higher now, as opposed to we're just getting the money earlier?
Yeah, Medicaid is probably the most notable of that. That's
okay.
one where it's fundamentally just a change in like the culture. There's a lot of individuals that provide services that have to then do the administrative work of logging that in and reporting it. If that doesn't happen timely, but people sit on it and there had been turnover in the administration before, and different personnel, people weren't aware, necessarily of what they needed to do or the importance of it. And that's definitely been a point of emphasis. So, with those efforts, and the education of staff and the point of emphasis, you know, we're expecting that Medicaid will come in higher than last year. And that's good because that's one of the things you just don't want to leave any money on the table. And it's, you know, some of these things we can't control. A lot of our revenue sources, it's, you know, the either local funding or state aid, but, you know, in other areas like that or tuitions, you know, making sure that we're just on top of it and we're, you know, we're not missing any billing either. That's, you know, you want to make sure that you've got a good handle on that. You know, I do think a much smaller category of revenue would be, you know, in the other revenue. We're hopeful that that will come in higher. Just that has to do with certain investment, you know, interest. And there's been a change in like the building use policies where in the past, you know, not everybody was charged always, and they redid the policy to ensure that they're, you know, basketball has to pay their share. You know, everybody's paying their share for using the school facilities. So, and then we're hopeful that the, you know, based on the trends for the salary and benefits, that it was a more realistic budget this time around, and that there's also been those efforts to, you know, to try to cut positions that we could. There were layoffs that went into effect last year. And so we're hopeful that that's reflective in what we're seeing through the first quarter of this year.
And is the RFP on the benefits piece gone out yet, or where does that stand?
So Donna's been working on that, I believe, from our last meeting. Was it last week? I think he talked about having drafted an RFP from another, you sort of piggybacking on a recent one from another district, a local district. But he's out of the state this week. He's sort of taking the lead in that RFPs.
Yeah, I think that's hopefully it's going to go out by next week so we can get that comparison. We see that as an opportunity to possibly get a bucket of money that we wouldn't necessarily have access to otherwise. So we're hoping that the RFP comes back and we're able to move forward and make that change to solidify and not affect anyone's benefits, but see the monetary addition on the back end.
Will you and Bob see those responses or to let us know or no?
I think just the school's the school's sending it out, but we're in communication where we'll see when it comes back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Just be good to see what comes back.
Yep.
You know, obviously we want to move forward with a sense of trust, but we also would love to see, you know, kind of, and so that way next year when you come to us and for your budget and say like, these are what the rates are, you can say, well, our RFP, our responses, this is what the average was or whatever. That would be helpful. Any other questions or discussion? Was that all for your report?
Yeah, and I'll be sure, I'll make sure I reshare all the information that was there. And like I said, it's got, you know, besides the summary page, it's got a backup detail to both of the revenue and expenditure side. So
excellent.
Answer any follow-up questions.
Thank you. Yes, if you could just forward that along.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. All right, we've got one final item before we go to executive session, the 2025 Town Council proposed meeting schedule. This is the last page in our packets. The only ones I think we should adjust would be December's to be the first and third, I think, Tuesdays, because the 30th, I feel like people are kind of off the grid in that time frame. So I'm not sure if folks are open to that change. And I tried to check all the other holidays and I think we're fine. I'm asking
You
the
have
quorum.
my yes vote with whatever you decide.
Okay.
DVD.
So I would just request that we make that change. Folks comfortable with that? Okay. So if with that change, I would then seek a motion to adopt the 2025 council schedule.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And so we can get to that other resolution, I request a motion to go into executive session for the following pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A2, sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation, or work sessions pertaining to collective bargaining or litigation or potential litigation, and pursuant to Rhode Island General Law, Section 42-46-5A3, for discussion by council, vote, or other action on security matters related to the cybersecurity, information security, and information technology infrastructure and systems of the town. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi?
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley?
Yes.
President Lima?
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
We'll now go into executive session. At this time, I'll take a motion to come out of executive session.
Motion.
Motion
Second.
and second. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And at this time, I'll take a motion to seal the minutes of executive session.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
Members of the public, the council met in executive session to discuss items A and B in our docket this evening. A discussion was had, no votes were taken. We'll now move up to resolution item R 2024-107 to purchase network backup and disaster recovery platform for the town, school, and police IT departments at a cost of $108,278.80. Funding source, American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, for years 1 and 2, and as part of their respective budgets in year 3. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion.
Second. Motion by Councilor Capaldi, second by Councilor Shockley. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Capaldi,
Yes.
Councilmember Shockley,
Yes.
President Lima,
Yes.
3 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, motion passes.
And lastly, we'll move to public comment for undocketed items. This is for discussion on those items not on our agenda this evening. Please come forward to the podium and turn on the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Just turn on the microphone, make sure it's on, please.
Oh, thank you. I like the labels. Hi, my name is Marsha Lewis. Can you hear me okay? I'm at 22 Circlewood Drive, and I am here today because I wanted to make a couple of comments about something. And before I do, you should know I am a licensed psychologist. The statements that I am making are reflective of myself in that role, as well as at the very end, I'll make an additional statement. It is not reflective of my employer. I am not here representing my employer. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this brouhaha with the drag story hour. And so to give you a little bit of background, you know, I make my living looking at multiple sides. That's what they pay me for, even sides that I don't want to look at personally. I also make my living in knowing what my own biases are. It's like in when an old principal of mine would say, they taught you that in little psychology school. And so I said to myself, okay, there's this big brouhaha. People are getting pretty ugly. They're calling drag queens pedophiles and the rest of us groomers and whatever the hell's going on. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a literature review like I would do with anything else. I'm a scientist, and look at if there is data, actual data on the mental health implications for kids for drag story hours. So I looked and I looked and I looked. And really what I found several things. So number one, much of the information out there is written by commentators on either side. And so I appreciate, as I told you, I appreciate reading both sides, but I want to tell you some of the points they made. So first of all, the divisiveness that is current in our country is associated with our thinking in extremes and then not wanting to hear anybody else. And I'm sure you've all seen that. And that's really true on both sides of the aisle. Whether it's somebody calling someone who is not knowing a cultural norm a racist because they simply don't know, or whether it's somebody calling somebody a drag queen a pedophile. There's no data to suggest that either is true, but what is true is that extremes, when you take an extreme and you pair it with fear and anxiety, you get somebody, and desperation, right? You get somebody that will make a sudden knee-jerk decision. As my son once said to me, less than a year ago, he said, "Mom, you need to remember, fear is a powerful weapon." Second of all, drag queens have been around for a really long time. And so thinking to myself, okay, is this like a new thing that, and thank you, Mr. Angel, for your comment about when your hair was darker, because I relate. Like, did I miss the bus when I was getting older? I'm not sure I did. We didn't call them drag queens. We laughed at them, laughed with them, cried with them. We enjoyed Some Like It Hot from the 1950s, a classic movie. We welcomed them into the plot of our movies and shows. For those in the audience who are old enough to remember the classic Bugs Bunny, I'm one of them. Bugs Bunny was a master at that. Kids watched Bugs Bunny. And of course, Mrs. Doubtfire and Tootsie, right? And now we pay $100 a ticket to go see Tootsie at PPAC, or was it 125? Sorry. So there's some discussion about the content of what is being read to. And excuse me, I like checking my notes. And the input of the holding or the sponsoring, I think the library is really helpful here when we think of something like this event. One of the things that I came across when I was doing my lit review was the importance of having what I'm going to call a range of literature for kids to read. So you might have the newer literature, and then you're going to have what I would personally call the old favorites, Dr. Seuss, if you don't mind my saying, or some of those more stories that came out maybe in the 2000s that we still read to our kids. And then some of the newer ones, which really reflect our understanding now. And when you do that with a nice spread, you do that without a political agenda. And I don't know about you, but I've really had it with political agendas, okay? This is not a political agenda. I also went hunting for the relationship of drag queens and the incidence of pedophilia. I said, let's look at this. Let's, what do you call it? Rip off the Band-Aid. I found no evidence of this within the empirical literature. None. And trust me, I hunted. What I did find, though, is a whole lot of accusations and name calling. Got pretty ugly in there in the articles that I was reading. These are articles in the Wall Street Journal. These are articles that were listed in different types of published journals that anybody has access to. And I found something really interesting that you might want to know about. I found that a drag queen performer won a defamation lawsuit against a town in New Hampshire. I think it was for $200,000, but I didn't write it down. So please don't swear me to that, because a performer was labeled a groomer or a pedophile. He won, which gave me kind of pause, because I don't know about you, but I really want to be careful of how I'm spending my tax dollars. I want to make one more comment, and on this one, it's about parenting. And so as parents, we know it's really important for us to be clear about our values and to be consistent. Routine and understanding is so important to a child. We all know that, right? And as parents, our job is to guide them and instill in them with those values that we hold dear. So, and what we think is important. I personally am grateful that nobody comes knocking at my door and tells me what activities my kids should be a part of. None. I will blaspheme and say that I never wanted my son to play football. My specialization is brain injury. I think you can all appreciate where that was coming from. I thank my lucky stars that he didn't do that. But That doesn't mean somebody else can't play football, just means I would prefer if my son did not do that, or my daughter for that matter. It's also, it's the freedom to not take my children to those things that aren't helpful, and it's the freedom to take them without fear of danger to those things that I will be helpful, whether it's something like the aquarium or a drag story time, should I have wished to do that. So I appreciate your time and your consideration. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others in council chambers? Just come forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Emily Martins. I'm on 41 Meeting Street. The concern I would like to address tonight involves some adult content. So I'll give a warning for that, just in case there were minors present, but I don't see any here left. I'm a Coventry resident and have been for almost 36 years. I grew up here, have worked in many loved Coventry institutions. I've seen the positive side and the hateful side of Coventry. Through Hopkins Hill Elementary School, Coventry Middle School, High School, St. John and Paul's Church, I was celebrated here for my academic achievements, sports, and writing competitions, but I was also bullied here, physically assaulted, sexually assaulted, and raped here, abused here. None of the emotional or physical violence I've experienced has ever been at the hands of drag queens. I witnessed so much positivity and hope here in my current job. I also see hate for the person I am, but can pass as not being fairly easily. I know Coventry is capable of wonderful, good, hope, kindness, inclusivity, and accessibility, but it is my opinion that the Coventry Town Council failed at that last week. Last week, there was a lot of hate given to Coventry Land Trust, Coventry Public Library, and I'm sure the Coventry Town Council regarding the announcement of the Land Trust Drag Storytime event. It was very clear from the wording of some of these comments that they didn't read the event description at all, that it was to be held outside on Land Trust property to introduce children to nature, that the library was partnering with Land Trust, and that the event was not in the library. As it does with all Coventry departments, the Land Trust, the library was just helping to select inclusive books appropriate to the event being geared towards children, meaning appropriate for children. This was not a drop-off event. Parents were to stay. The town was not paying for the event. The performers were donating their time. There was a lot of speculation regarding what would be read and what inclusive meant, and that the library was refusing to say what books were chosen. When I asked, they said they had chosen 3 books and that people were able to view them but not check them out to bring home as they were reserved for the event. Official titles selected for the event included A Red Crayon Story by Michael Hall, a picture book about the importance of being true to yourself and following your own path. Plenty of Hugs by Fran Manerskin, a rhyming picture book that is a loving celebration of family, starring 2 mommies and their toddler. Something Great by Jeanette Bradley, a picture book about creativity, possibility, and wonder. The majority of challenges to free expression focused not on these titles, contents, or authors of any of the specific books, but rather who is reading them. Drag Storytime is where picture books are read aloud to children, performers dressed in drag, usually men dressed in theatric, feminine costumes, try to encourage both a love of reading and acceptance of diversity. Regarding the comments, a simple click on the commenters' names provided the information that the majority of those against are what are called hate posters, or people who have social media specifically to incite hateful comments merely as a way to garner responses and make a bit of social media clout and cash. They were not even residents of Coventry, and many not even from Rhode Island. Yet still, for every bit of hate, many actual residents of Coventry stepped forward with excitement and praise to show support for the event and to educate with reference to the event description and what was actually happening, away from the sordid accusations and fear-mongering. Still, Coventry decided to postpone the event in an act of what I would call cowardice the very day after the election when the queer community needed a bit of support. You failed them. You failed to show up with love and kindness, accessibility, empathy, understanding, any of it. You sided with hate, with what I feel was no explanation. So I would like to step forward and ask for that explanation. And maybe, as a gay disabled woman and resident of Coventry, offer some education and ease the fears of participating in such an event so that members of my community aren't suppressed and disappointed in the future. I have a few questions. Is your problem with men in dresses? Are women in pants okay? I'm wearing them today. What about men in kilts, tights, superhero costumes, cosplay? We just had Halloween. My very straight manly brother once went as a bride and groom with his best friend. Was that okay? Is the fact that their kids went as Barbie and Ken this year okay? What about, as was mentioned, Mrs. Doubtfire, Tootsie, MASH, Saturday Night Live? Is it only okay when straight men do it? Plenty of drag queens are straight. It's an art form, not a sexuality. Is men in makeup okay? I think it's okay, or else you'd be calling a halt to theater, Hollywood, Halloween, television, the news. Former president and President-elect Donald Trump. Is it the wigs? Is it still all right for men to wear toupees? How much added hair is too much added hair? And on that line, is it just drag queens, or do we have a problem with kings too? Is it okay for women to dress as men for entertainment? Do we just have a problem with men demeaning themselves and dressing lower than their station in life? And why are we sexualizing a children's program? Why is it okay to go to Disney World and shove your children at a man dressed as Minnie Mouse, or the mall and put your child in the lap of a man dressed as a rabbit? Why isn't that being sexualized? Why is that okay? But a performer in big, colorful, sparkly clothing with interesting theatrical makeup, experience in front of a crowd, well-spoken, empathetic, funny, capable of doing lots of cool voices, a shoo-in really for the job of reading out loud in a way that keeps attention. Why is that not okay? Drag queens are nightclub performers, but there's a spectrum, from comedy to dancing to singing and lip syncing to beauty pageants and more. These talented individuals wear many hats. Why can't children's performers be one of them? Are you worried that they can't tame down their adult targeted humor from a nightclub or late night show to a daytime event for children? I have a great example of someone who can, someone we've all heard of, someone I'm willing to bet you've seen do both, be it live TV, the internet, whatever. Elmo. Sesame Street baby by day, adult comedy star by night. We trust Elmo to teach our children empathy, understanding, letters, numbers, what have you during the day. Then on late night TV talk shows, he lets loose, swearing, adult innuendo, challenging talk back, threats of violence, all in the name of humor and for fun adult time. You as parents get to decide which side of Elmo your child sees. I'm sure as a parent you shield them from watching Elmo cursing out Rocco the Rock on late night TV with colorful language barely hidden behind bleeps and angry explosions, the same way you would shield them from entering a bar and seeing an adult comedy show. But come 11 a.m., seeing Elmo talking about big emotions, Dorothy the fish, silly Mr. Doodle, etc. on Sesame Street is safe and fine. Why are we having trouble doing the same for these performers? I was going to quote some of the posts, but I no longer feel that it's necessary. I believe you've all seen them. So I guess now I will give you the time to reflect on what I've said and the questions I've asked, but I would like an explanation on why this decision, thank you, was made to side with hate, to let people who don't even belong to the town decide what we do, to let fear win. What was the reason, if not hate? I would also like to know your plan of action for how these people and groups will be dealt with in the future, and when we will have more inclusive and free events like this, canceled drag story time, accessible to us. Thank you.
Could you say at the podium? You had asked direct questions, so I'd just like to
Absolutely.
answer
I
them.
didn't, I assumed you would need to
So,
understand.
I see you and I hear you. I thank you for your service to the town. I understand your frustration and your sadness. However, I don't feel it's fair to make assumptions about my personal opinions. I don't know if you spoke personally to these other council members up here about their feelings on this, but I kind of would have appreciated if you felt anger towards or upset towards any of us that you might have reached out personally. As someone who organized and drafted the first resolution to raise a Pride progress flag outside this town hall 4 years ago.
I'm aware,
Yes. As someone who has been a part of LGBTQ advocacy organizations since I was in high school, as someone, if we're getting if we're getting to that point, I've seen Kinky Boots twice. I've seen Tootsie. So I don't feel that it was fair to cast those aspersions when you haven't spoken to me or, to my knowledge, any of these other council members directly. I understand you're hurt. I understand you're sad. It would have been nice to get that opportunity to be spoken to before being publicly. I understand part of my position is to be held publicly accountable, and I accept that, but it would have been nice to have that conversation.
May I respond?
I've spoken to the land trust chair. We had a conversation about getting together between council leadership, the town administration, and her board to talk about how we address this going forward in terms of, because I respect the initiative to provide inclusive programming. So that's where our next step is to meet collectively between town administration, council leadership, which is at the point in flux as we go to a new term, and speak with Ms. Odell. So I know there's other council members that would like to speak as well. Councilman Capaldi.
No one has spoken to me. Thank you for being here and thank you for talking. But I agree with Hillary on you just kind of blanketing that to us. I lived in Los Angeles for 20 years, New York City for 5 years. All my friends are gay. So I really took that a little bit. My niece, my sister's daughter, is transgender. So I took that really personally because I do believe that if we're talking about drag queens, different than transgender, there's a lot of things. I've been brought into this life because of my niece, but you blanketing that on us did not give us the opportunity to tell you what our thoughts are. And so I just want to let you know that I do not believe in the way you were, just thinking that we were the bad people. I was not the bad person. So I want you to know that I appreciate everyone out there, whatever you are, because it's in my family and it's close to me.
Councilmember Shockley.
Thank you. I don't know that it matters good and bad in this situation. I will say the same people who planned the event, it seems chose to cancel the event at some point. I don't know if there were safety issues they were thinking of or something along those lines. I can say I did see the Facebook post about this. That's when I learned that the town was having this. And when I first saw it, I was really excited. I was actually really proud of Coventry. Kind of going back to, you said earlier, we do have a pride flag that hangs in this town. I think listening to just the eloquence and research done by the two women speaking tonight speaks very highly of the town where we all live, that you took the time to not just judge something, but to learn about it. And I think that that's fantastic. I will say there were people on that post who I would not only call people I know, but maybe I thought of as even friends who I was very disappointed in. I couldn't believe the hate and vitriol and small-mindedness that went into the posts that were part of this event. From some people who teach children, who coach children, I would hate to think that there's a child in their classroom who is currently experiencing curiosity or confusion, and that they showed such intolerance to anyone who just didn't conform. So I thought it was very sad. I will say the day after the election, I went off Facebook. I did take it off my phone, and I'm trying not to use that tool. That being said, I didn't know it was canceled. And when coming in here tonight, I did ask, I was like, oh, I have to remember to look at when that is because I do want to go. When I first heard people were going to be speaking about this tonight, I thought people were coming up to speak against the event. And it's really such a positive thing to hear that people came to speak for it. It sounds like there's already a plan in mind to make sure this event can happen, and that it can happen safely for everybody. And while I totally understand, like I said, there are people out there who are just pot stirrers who, there are people who live locally. And what I would say to you all is, for all those who listen to these meetings. Don't go. If it's not something that you find would be appropriate for you or your children, please don't attend the event. But maybe try to learn a little about it, because the worst thing that can happen is that the least impression is that someone will just think it's funny. You know, there's a man up there dressed like a woman, but it might really make someone who was questioning who they were feel they have a kindred spirit. Or if you're not, and you just happen to be in a place where you're not part of the LGBTQ community or plus, you just become a little more tolerant. So appreciate you guys coming in tonight. I think it's really fantastic. And hopefully we can make the event happen.
May I respond with an
Yes.
apology? So I see you, ladies, and I hear you as well. I would like to formally apologize for accusing you outright. When I was researching what happened with the cancellation of the event, I was informed that it was a town council decision. So I made the assumption that the majority of the town council voted to cancel the event. That appears to be misinformation, so I do apologize.
I am happy to sit down with you and have a conversation as well, more in depth about this. I'm very open to that.
I would be as well.
And, you know, maybe the manager or Miss Odell can connect us, but I'm happy to open that door, and I would absolutely appreciate sitting down.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you speaking this evening.
Super quick. Hannah Henry Haas, 30 Hazard Street. Thank you for all of that support. Incredibly appreciated. I don't have big speeches performed or prepared like they do. I just want to say, please, I appreciate that postponed was the language that was used. And I really, really hope that that will actually be rescheduled, because I think it sends a message that we don't want to send if it's not. So thank you.
Any further public comment on undocketed items? Public comment on Zoom? Oh, yeah. Can I just give Zoom a chance? I just want to make sure there's anybody else. Anyone on Zoom, please raise your hand to be let in. Public comment on undocketed items. Okay.
You know, maybe. Oh. Even after COVID, we did, oh, excuse me. I am glad to hear your support. I want to, having been privy to some of the machinations of how this went down, this was not postponed at the recommendation of the land trust manager. This was postponed in concert with the recommendations that were given to her. I think we all stand the chance to learn from this and to not give in to hate and to not let ourselves be fearful of that. I appreciate your story. I have enormous respect for people who do things that step outside of that comfort zone. Those like JFK talked about in Profiles in Courage. I would like to see the same here. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
All right, public comment, docketed items going once, going twice, 3 times. Public comment is now closed. And at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:46 p.m.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion for the final time by Councilmember Shockley and second by Councilwoman Capaldi. Any, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We stand adjourned.